Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy holidays.
Good evening.
Whatever it might be.
Yes.
Yeah, we got a whole. We're gonna have a whole crew of people. It is. We're gonna have a whole group of people here. We've already got two. Gentlemen,
They're so eager. Look at the lights at the top.
I can tell they're just. I can tell they are clearly just so excited to be here, fellas. God, don't get too excited. Obviously, or yeah, or they just.
TOS is low. Can we bump the volume a bit? JP, I think you broke something.
Oh, for Christ's sake! All right, hang on. All of you need to talk for a minute.
Or is it me? Yeah. Talk for 1 minute. I was thinking to myself.
What do we want to talk about?
Well, the whole point of today's show is to tell us how we ruined your lives after coming to the show, and how your mid-year review went to the toilet after the.
I haven't talked to my manager about mid-year review yet, so I might be able to tell you next week.
Christos, I got you all the way up, so my assumption is, I don't know, your mic's turned down too low, maybe?
How is that even possible? You mean the, let me see, the gain? Gain is
I guess so.
Should I go further up?
Hey Christos, this email is super fun. Is it shareable, or do I need to get permission?
No, not at all. Not at all.
You don't even know what email he's talking about, JP.
Yes, I do. And no, it's not.
I think he was listening. JP is wearing the 425, so close.
Oh yeah, look, yeah. See.
Show us.
Look at that. Yeah.
When do I get a 425 jacket? You know how many points I've spent in this channel?
We got a shirt.
The swag.
That's okay. We'll make it happen.
Corey Collins.
We'll get you something.
The swag. The swag is all virtual. We have.
Hey, why isn't Corey in here? Corey, let's get Corey. I'm hijacking him.
We'll send him the link, and he
I
can
am.
come in.
Join us. Yeah,
If
So
only
anyway-
we had a chat that JP could use to send everybody the link, we could have so much more personality in this particular channel.
I don't know if we want that kind of personality, to be quite honest.
We need that kind of personality, to be quite honest.
Is everybody's today the last day? Are you guys taking time off for Christmas? No.
Well,
I am
I'm
on
taking time
vacation
off,
this
but
week.
I'm still working the first 3 days of next week.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then
so
I'm going to socially distant take time off.
Is that a prison jumper with a hat? What is Richard wearing? Almost like a prison jumper.
So what do you fellas working on?
This is an authentic llama sweater from the native cliffs of Peru. True story. And this is like the warmest sweater ever.
Really?
I almost sacrificed my life because the llama tried to push me off the edge of Machu Picchu. And I shared the stories or the pictures with JP yesterday. And even JP looked and was like, yeah, that's llama scowling at you.
Well, anyway, so what do you fellas been up to? Richard, you haven't been on in weeks, which is weird for you since you sort of crashed the party all the time. What you been up to? What you been working on? Anything good?
So I've been working on this new thing called DevSecOps, which I've learned a whole lot about how Microsoft's definition is unique compared to the industry at large. So my goal is to try to find a way to bring the Microsoft definition of what DevSecOps is to what our customers expect from what that should be, and then match it up with our various services. On top of that, obviously the enterprise scale landing zone is something I'm still passionate about and working with, because it's kind of, I call it the easy button. I will be doing a live stream and presentation on January 28th for that in the evening through the Microsoft Tech Talk series. As that date gets closer, we can evangelize that. So if you guys want to see how to take the vast estate that is Azure and make it something quick and easy with a one button experience and not have a, let's call it a SolarWinds style experience, then, watch it soon and you'll learn all that good stuff.
A SolarWinds style experience. That's pretty awful. So I guess if you haven't been around with what's been going on this week, a bunch of operations and monitoring folks have been extremely busy gutting their SolarWinds installations after it was like nation state level stuff, right? I mean, it was pretty serious. So We know there are a lot
And
of
it all
people
came
doing
down
that.
to lack of identity security. I think that's all public, right? So watch this stream, learn from JP and Christos on how to make sure your identities are secure and protected, and you'll be golden.
Well, I think it was. I think the last thing I had heard was that it had something to do with. Essentially, they got inside and they had some lateral movement. They managed to get a hold of
Yep.
some certificates. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like I told you a couple days ago, is that if I if I steal a certificate, then I no longer am forging a SAML token. I am creating very much a valid SAML token. So
Yep.
yeah,
it's no
pretty
different than if you were
interesting.
just to create a new account in Active Directory. You're no longer stealing an account. You just created a new one to perpetuate, your existence, kind of thing. Yep. Same thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna refill
Yeah,
my coffee
yeah.
cup.
It's okay. So secure DevOps. I hope there's plenty of identity in there, Richard.
He went to go get a coffee. What's up, Nils? What you been working on, my friend?
Yeah, man.
Kubernetes.
Obviously.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, you're breaking up. You're breaking up. Oh,
Oh,
I'm just
yeah. I
kidding.
was saying Kubernetes. I actually have the privilege of working with a pretty large enterprise customer that's moving a SaaS application from somewhere else to Azure on Kubernetes, and it's just super interesting. The scale we're working on, some of the problems we're running into is super interesting. So
That's awesome.
exciting.
So tell
Yeah.
me how you feel about the whole Docker Kubernetes debacle that kicked off a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, where Kubernetes is no longer going to be using Docker.
Yep.
I think it's a little bit of an. There's a Dutch expression where we say it's a storm in a glass of water. I don't know how to say that in English, but you can still use your same Docker images. The only thing that's changing is the runtime in Kubernetes will no longer support Docker, and there's a good reason for it, because in Kubernetes there's this thing called the container runtime interface, which is an interface that all your software that's running containers need to comply to.
Right.
And Docker doesn't play nice with that, so it's normal that Kubernetes says you don't play nice with us, so we'll work with the people or work with the software that plays nice with us.
Yeah. So if I'm a developer, I'm still packaging with Docker locally.
Yes.
I mean, essentially my developer workflow hasn't changed at all, right?
No, your developer workflow doesn't change at all, and from a practical perspective, there's a couple of minor things that are no longer supported if you move from Docker to Containerd. But those are some minor edge cases that I don't expect a lot of customers to run into.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, how many people were really... I mean, the whole point was that the Docker container runtime is no longer supported, right? So, like, I can't run a container with Docker, but people weren't doing that anyway, were they? I mean, unless they had a really specific reason.
Well, in AKS, you were using Docker as the runtime, because that's what we were using. But
Okay.
it shouldn't really matter that much, because in Kubernetes that's abstracted, as I said, with the container runtime interface, so that shouldn't matter much. But I do wonder about, and I've been wondering if that it's more of a personal interest, is what Docker as a company is going to do, because they sold off their Docker Enterprise business, and it's speculation right now, but I don't know what they as a company are going to do.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and Vicious asks, is he alone and using Docker for the entire build and deployment? And I mean,
if
what do
you
you
follow
see?
Twitter, you would say that you are alone because everybody on the Twitters is using Kubernetes. In reality, no, you are definitely not alone, and there's still people running containers without Kubernetes. And although I love it as a platform and it's very interesting to work with, you don't need Kubernetes. So if you have something that works where you're building and deploying just using Docker, no orchestration, and it works for you and you don't have challenges, please keep it up, because you don't want to introduce additional complexity where it's not required.
Talking
Yeah.
about containers, I am extremely disappointed because Richard promised to show me how to... You're muted, Richard. Or is he talking to himself? I think he's talking to somebody else. He's not listening. He promised me that we're going to set up my Raspberry Pi with Pi-hole running on containers. But he never materialized. Caparino, what do you mean by Kubernetes dropping Docker support? Is Google going to create Docker-like system? I mean, Kubernetes is just a load balancer. Well, Kubernetes is a lot more than a load balancer, but do you want to answer that, Niels?
Yes, I don't see that question, but the reason Kubernetes is dropping Docker has little to nothing to do with Google at all. The reason Docker is being dropped is just as a piece of runtime in Kubernetes, but you can still use the same Docker images. So you still, on your local station, use Docker to build, you still push to a Docker registry, and then in Kubernetes it'll pull in those images and it'll just use something else like containerd to run them instead of Docker. But from a pure runtime perspective, that shouldn't impact you at all. And to that other statement, Kubernetes is just a load balancer. Depends on the definition of load balancer, but it's a lot more, which also makes it complicated to spin up and manage. So if you can avoid it, that might not be the worst of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the key really is that the big announcement that turned essentially the minor announcement that turned into this huge, I think Tempest in a Teacup is the English version of Storm in a Glass, is just that...
Does that mean you're wearing a jumper today, JP?
What?
Does that mean you're wearing a jumper today? If we want to get all English, then it's a jumper party.
Well, no. Nils said there was a phrase of Storm in a Glass, and I said that the English phrase, whatever English you want to choose, not necessarily British English, but is Tempest in a Teacup. I mean, the level of, it's just anyway. Now I forgot what I was saying. Oh, so the whole point, the minor announcement was that the Docker container runtime will not run containers in Kubernetes anymore. It's going to use something different, a container, containerd or whatever. The thing it's turned into is much bigger than that, because of course Docker you're using to package your containers and push them to a registry or whatever, but ultimately this is an execution change. It's not an authoring or packaging change.
Yep.
Yeah.
And honestly, most people don't even know if they're using Docker or not. I've had some customers actually dig in and find out they've already switched over to containerd, and they had no idea. They just assumed it was Docker, because the Docker commands, as you mentioned, to build, publish, and push does not mean you're using Docker as your runtime as well.
Yeah.
True.
Right. Enough with Docker this morning. I don't know if people want to carry on down that route, but maybe I opened a kind of worms that I shouldn't have. Should we?
Do you think that this is backlash for Docker now giving limits on the number of push pulls in their free registry?
No, I think it's related to Docker not implementing the CRI runtime in Kubernetes, and there was this shim in place, and I believe that now they can do without the shim and no more code to maintain.
I have to say though that the annoying thing was that as Kubernetes was picking up speed or traction with enterprises, everybody else just dropped off the face of the earth. So Docker Swarm and other orchestration tools just disappeared and gave up on the game. So
you know what the right answer is, Christos? Everyone use Service Fabric. I've been telling JP this for months now. Just everybody needs to start using Service Fabric.
We're gonna do a Service Fabric show. We gotta find time. Christos has
True
booked
story.
solid
I asked
through like
JP,
April.
did I learn Service Fabric, and he said no.
No, I didn't say that.
Actually, you did. Let me scroll back up in Teams. You did say no.
Well, hang on. We've got two more. We've got two more of our friends here. So one of them used to be follicularly challenged, and he's transferred that crown to the other one because he grew a bunch of hair since in the 9 months it's been since I've physically seen him. So we have Mr. Calloway here. Good morning, Corey.
Oh,
morning.
So Corey's a CSA on the U.S. team at Microsoft. So he and I have worked together for a really long time. And
you did?
I don't know if that's good or bad, but hey.
I can hear him.
Okay.
So Corey and I used to work together on the U.S. team, and we spent a lot of time together long before we came to Microsoft, doing about the same thing we're doing now, which is hanging out with people and helping them get on board.
Corey, I may need to reach out to you for some tips and tricks on how to work with JP.
Well, I'll tell you this. When Corey and I started working together, my interview with him was about 5 minutes of technical questions of like, hey, have you ever done this? And he was like, yeah. And then he told me how he did it, and I was like, okay, I guess you've done this. So do you want to come work here? He's like, yeah, sure, I guess. And it was the weirdest interview anyway. But but yeah, so he does a bunch of wild stuff with customers, and so it's cool that he's here. Then we have one other friend of the show who hasn't been on in a while. I don't know. I guess he's so busy because he's a big manager now. But we've got
he's the Master Chief. Is it the Master Chief? Oh
no, it's Vista. It's Mr. Vinny. Good morning, Vinny.
Yeah. Hey, Vinny.
Hello, everybody. I'm here to do your pre-connect evaluation. So all of you have dramatically missed the mark.
It's too late. It's too late.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, are you allowed to talk to us, all of us peasants who are individual contributors? Are you even allowed to do this? Are you going to get
I'm not allowed to give you the answer, but I am allowed to tell you if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So watch yourselves. Although I was gonna say, I feel like Callaway like wandered off the set of This Old House. Like he's got that. I've got a rough-hewn cabinet to make.
It's okay if you're jealous, Vinny.
If you didn't know any better, you would say Callaway lives in Seattle, because that is the Pacific Northwest style, where you get the vest and you get the backward hat. You would never know he doesn't even live on the West Coast.
Yeah, dress for the job you want.
He needs a standard issue North Face jacket that's like
Yep.
everybody wears. That's mostly rain resistant, but not all the way.
Hey, Vinny, do you have a proper microphone instead of the ear things? Because nobody can hear you.
Well, if you're gonna give me more grief, I guess I'll go get new equipment together. But yeah, I got stuff. Hang on.
I mean, you buy.
I really want to know where he got those French doors at for his den. Those are gorgeous.
Thank you. They're terrible at blocking sound, but they're otherwise beautiful.
But they look good. That's a metaphor for so many things.
It's the looks that matter, right?
Mainly me.
Well, if you can't really do it, just dress for it, and then people will think that you're capable of doing it. That's how my consulting life has gone in the last 5 years.
So Vinny's
All right, how does this sound?
Oh,
Is this
infinitely better? So much better.
All right, got my Yeti ready to go.
Yeah,
There
you should
you
use.
go.
Yeah, don't use those things. Anyway, Vinny is Vinny used to be a person who did work. He did a bunch of data stuff. Now he does actual work in the evenings and does his day job of managing people who do work. But he's a data guy, so does a lot of data warehousing and analytics and all that sort of fun stuff. He's my go-to when I have Power BI questions. But he does
Which
a whole
is like
lot more than Power BI.
once a year, and we otherwise just
Yeah.
argue the rest of the time. So
So what do you guys have going on? What you got going on, Vinny? Anything good? Anything identity related? I'm guessing that's going to be a no, but I'll ask anyway.
actually, no. If you really want to wade into this, we'll make it interesting.
Gosh.
Helping a customer, one of the architectures that we're looking at. So our team gets escalations, right? When things pop in the field, when everything breaks, when there's no clear path forward, you ask for help, and we're part of that help that could be deployed.
What happens when they say no? Because I've asked for help lots of times, and JP and Christos never say yes.
Well, you're wrong team. You're going to the wrong well for that beverage.
But did you create the
come on
tickets?
over.
But by the way, I think Niels is about to jump out because he's got actual work to do rather than hang out with us, which is totally.
Sadly enough, sorry guys.
Hey man, it was really a pleasure for you to stop by, and we look
Okay.
forward to having you again in the new year, right? Because you're coming
Yes.
back for more Kubernetes fun.
Yes,
Yeah,
see you in February.
Resident container expert. Well, have a great holiday, Nils, and we will see you on the other
Thank you.
side.
Yeah.
See everybody.
See
Thanks
ya.
for having me.
In the meantime, before we continue with Vincent, because he's got really interesting stuff to say, and Richard complaining about he's not getting any help, should we talk about the swag and the giveaways? Because we got some giveaways to give out today. I mean,
Yeah,
I
we
woke
got
up my manager
some-
at 5 a.m. this morning just to approve some of the swag. So
Yeah, but Christos, aren't you Pacific time? 5 a.m. Pacific time? That's not early.
no,
Well,
our manager's in a different time zone. So.
he's not on Pacific time right now. He's on extremely Pacific time. Maybe we'll say that.
Yeah, so he definitely approved it at 5 a.m. this morning, which is awesome. Thank you very much. So now we have Azure vouchers and we have Xbox credits. So you got Xbox Game Passes, not Xboxes, Xbox Game Passes for you folks, and we have Azure vouchers. And if you want to know how to get them, all you have to do is just send us an email on the 4 to 5 show and tell us what we did well, what we did awful, and what we should do more in the next year. So if you want to see stuff that we haven't done before, if you want us to stop stuff that we're doing and you don't like them, let us know. And then if you want us to do more of the same stuff that we do, then also let us know. So the first 5 ones that come in will get a chance to choose what they want to get, and then we'll announce more giveaways later on in the stream. So stick around. Yeah, 4 to 5 show at Microsoft.com.
So, hey, we got a couple questions for you, Vinny. Since you're the data guy, here comes AZ Wildfire dumping his gifts everywhere. Any chance of getting an update of the SSRS report viewer component that works with .NET Core? Oh wow! So these are like RDLCs. I haven't used an RDLC in probably 10 years. So, you know anything about like what's the deal with reporting services anyway, Vinny? Like, is it gonna continue, or is Power BI like the new thing? Like, I mean, I don't even know. I can't keep up with all of it. So,
yeah. So the path with that is interesting. I think I don't know that you're going to have anything released like that. I guess I don't have visibility to it, so I can neither confirm or deny there's something else coming that's going to operate cleanly with .NET Core. I do know that directionally, you're going to hear in the background, it's going to sound like yelling, but that's actually children being educated, and that's parenting happening in real time. Although it's alarming to hear. It's disconcerting when you're like, wow, that child needs to run.
Better get DSS on the phone.
All normal stuff. Totally
same
normal.
Same in our house.
Yeah.
Background noise.
So the thing that, again, directionally where things are going from a report perspective is they obviously took reporting services, they merged together with Power BI. They're trying to unify that as best they can without losing the functionality that everyone's become accustomed to inside reporting services and the beautiful RDL files that you can put together. So that said, the 2 products that you really have now are Power BI and the supported capabilities that it has both on the service as well as from an embedded perspective. And you flip over and you've got Power BI Report Server, to where they're trying to establish some level of parity between what's in the Power BI service as well as what's inside of the Power BI Report Server to meet that need. But, shocker, we're driving a lot of things towards the cloud, towards the service. You get more functionality sooner, etc. The embedded story has come a long way, even from a Power BI perspective. It used to be that you had no real ability to take Power BI reports and just kind of skin them where they are and bring them through a new interface. But with Power BI embedded in Azure, Power BI capacity, embedded capacity that you can put up in Azure, there's more that you can do that you were not able to do in V1. V1 was, you didn't really have an interface. You had to create the resources, and then you started pushing definitions to it. So. And then embedding was all really just an iframe, right? You had to go in, you had to program your application to then get all the right parameters to talk to the behind-the-scenes model. That's changing a bit. A long way to say that, again, I don't have a good answer for you on RDLCs and whether or not that functionality from a .NET Core perspective is going to be built out. It may be in the backlog somewhere, but...
A couple of notes there, right? One is embedding also requires a licensing, so it's not free like the Power BI, which is
so that's the other side of it, right? Well, let's take that back, right? So to run any kind of Power BI capacity, whether it's dedicated through Office 365 or you spin it up in Azure, right? Because you go into the Azure platform and you can create A1 through A9 SKUs, which effectively give you the Power BI front end that you can attach to a workspace, as well as the actual analysis services engine behind the scenes that you can do some other interesting things with. So that would require at least one Power BI Pro license to be able to manage the environment. And then with that dedicated capacity, you're able to create an app and share it externally. So they're trying to drive more with the embedded platform, obviously, with the Power Platform. But with that app, then you have the privilege to say, I can give this to someone who can access it over our Office 365 identity construct. So there's a minimum level of licensing necessary for that, yes. But even to run Power BI Report Server, to render Power BI reports, you still need to have some Power BI license users to be able to manage the environment. That's required as part of the licensing agreement there. So it's hard to really get away from it, all things considered. But in terms of the way reporting services used to work before, where you had, hey, here's my reporting services server, I could take it, put it over the front end that I want, and strip everything else away and do, customized authentication pieces. That's just getting a little more hard, a little more difficult, because things are moving towards larger, higher capacity, higher capability platforms like PowerBI.com, like Power BI Embedded, etc. But I can try to confirm some of that of what is the path for RDLCs if we don't have a clear one for that going forward.
Funny story about RDLC. I used to work for a very large enterprise, and they had to develop and build RDLC reports and what have you. And it was always hard to run the whole thing just to get the RDLC report. So there is currently a NuGet package in my name called RDLC Tester that allows you to pass an RDLC file and XML data, and will pump out the RDLC report. It's not in .NET Core, but let me know if you want to see that in .NET Core, because obviously I will have 2 weeks of downtime and I need something to keep me occupied and not go crazy. If you want to see that in .NET, does .NET Core do RDLC? That would be a curious thing.
No, I can't imagine it would. I mean, I think it relies on a bunch of old framework components.
Yes, I think it has a dependency. Also, it's Windows only, right? So I would be super surprised if it were to run on Mac or Linux.
I don't like the look of it.
No, not at all. It's definitely not something I think is going to work. And I don't know if, and I would imagine, like, can I still go install like SSRS today, Vinny?
It's Power BI report server. So they decoupled the two installations. So you have SQL Server as a standalone install, and then you have Power BI report server that's adjacent to it. It used to be you had the business intelligence components that were a part of a SQL Server installation, and you could circle back and install all those other pieces with it. But while they did some slipstreaming with that to try to make sure that you could, install a bunch of the pieces together as opposed to having to go download separate components and then go install them, there was enough demand to say, hey, we want to do Power BI report server with all the reporting services components. If you going way back in the tree, so you had reporting services at one point that then started to branch into mobile reports, which was a server product called DataZen. DataZen was a cool, interesting looking platform that was built over top of, it was visualizations built over top of RavenDB. And RavenDB would go in and read from wherever you had your data, but they were like literally two separate pieces that just happened to be next to one another. So that for like a hot minute, everybody was trying to figure out how to do reports on DataZen, and then we transitioned away from that into Power BI, but it was just kind of a link. And so at the same time, Power BI in Office 365 was there, which was different than Power BI inside of Excel, and then they started to like it was really hard to tell that story because we were consulting at the time, and so I would just take monthly beatings from customers that were like, okay, what do we use now? What's it called? What's it called today? But I think it's stabilized a bit more now. I just don't think that the way it was will ever be the way it is again. For what it's worth.
That's how I started. My first job, I was on a help desk, and they said, "Hey, do you know anything about SQL?" And I was like, "No." And they said, "Good, you need to go write these reports." And this is when Report Server you installed separately. Like it was like I don't even know if it was like a released thing yet. And it was you just installed it separately to SQL Server, and that was where I started using like joins and stuff for the first time. And it really sort of twisted my brain in ways that I didn't like. And yeah, so I that was my first thing. And then one of the developers got fired or left, and they said, "Hey, do you want to write some code?" And I was like, "I guess." And they said, "Okay, cool, here you go." And then my first project was an online like banking account management app, which is definitely not what you want your first software project to be in. So, and somehow I've ended up here. Yeah, no pressure at all. And they were all like, it was like executive benefits, so they were all like all these super high net worth individuals who would scream at the slightest thing, you know. So every time I was making a code change, it was absolutely terrifying. There's one other developer, and he was very just yeah, whatever about everything. And yeah, I think about that now. Like that was back when I was so dumb about everything that I thought, oh yeah, I can do this. I'm fine. And now I think if there's anything I can go back and tell my old self, it would be you should probably read a few books before you start trying to build this thing again. But so what you got going on, Callaway?
Tell us, man. Yeah, you've been very quiet, apart from tweeting, obviously, because your tweet is great.
Yeah, just giving people behind scenes look. Right now, I'm mainly battling with some fun data stuff because I deleted a server before deleting the endpoint, and so I'm having to chicken before the egg that. But lately, been doing a lot of WVD stuff, so I've been playing with fun Wise terminals and thin clients and such like that. Having fun with that. Also, is going to be working on some AD stuff that you guys might find interesting. Since Chrome is now letting people use old machines and run Chrome OS, we have some people interested in the Linux version of WVD and how that can come into play. And so it'll be interesting to see if we can get proper authentication working through that, because we have customers that want to do smart card authentication and other things with Azure AD and other things. So might have some interesting looks for you in the future.
Interesting.
WVD and Azure AD. That seems like you're coming to the show very, very soon.
Because WVD right now requires you've got to have some sort of domain environment, be it DS, like Azure AD domain services, or an on-prem set of domain controllers or whatever, right?
Yeah, you have to have on-prem for the WVD host, but we do kind of a pre-auth to the WVD service, which then we kind of proxy your connection back in to the actual host. So that all works, in the HTML5 browser, and it'll be interesting looking because we don't have an official Linux client. We use things like iGel and other third parties that we recommend. But it'll be interesting with Chrome OS that we might have people trying to use, especially now in this unique scenario where people are just trying to find hardware where they can get it. Because Chrome OS kind of runs certain things in containers. So it's kind of how do we break out of that, and how is the auth handled through there? So can we actually get in more, rather than just the HTML5 browser experience, what can we do? So working on stuff like that, so might have some cool things to tinker with and see if we can get Azure AD working correct on Chrome OS.
Wow.
I know that's a weird sentence you probably never thought you would hear. So, but yeah.
No, this is true. I can definitely promise you this morning I did not expect to hear that. But I mean, I think especially you look at things like all the work that's gone into Chromium to make the new Edge. I don't know if Chrome OS is. I mean, I know obviously there's a whole OS underneath it, but you have to wonder how far away would it be to have once Sync starts working for Edge on Linux, for example, how much further is it to get to sort of I don't know, an Edge OS, right? I mean, I decided to format my machine.
Isn't that where we're supposed to be Windows 10 IoT kind of be our Edge OS?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. But Windows 10 IoT has two flavors. There's the one for the super low power devices, right? Which I haven't touched it in a couple years. But last time I tried to do it, I ran on a Raspberry Pi or whatever, and you had to do it like a UWP app and stuff, and it was fairly constrained. But Windows 10 Enterprise.
The Enterprise has gotten a lot better because that's what I have running on this Wise terminal here. They have a kind of a write protector that you have to disable, but it is actually a full-on 64-bit OS under there, so you can download and install things and make them available. Obviously this isn't core, but so it's gotten better than previous, because I have another one here that's the Windows 7 embedded, which is painful. Trying to get that to work, so.
Yeah, I mean, I did IoT Enterprise with a customer that was building kiosks to go live in a desert, and it was essentially. It's essentially
desert.
in mining fields in Western Australia. So yes, very very desert, very hot, very dry, very windy. But IoT Enterprise was essentially Windows 10. It was essentially Windows 10 LTSB, right? So it was a Windows 10 that you could put onto a box, that you could image to a box, had the same features as Enterprise, but it would get updates once every 5 years or whatever, right? So you could deploy a device and not have to worry about, oh, it's a Windows feature update or or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think it's I don't know. I think it'd be kind of interesting. How much was that Wise box you got?
They're both around like $60-$70.
That's it?
I have one. Well, it depends on what generation you get, because some of them are kind of falling out of support officially. So like the cheaper box, like this one was like $40 because it's Windows 7. And because Dell likes to lock things down, it's a pain to do certain things. So I'm probably going to take it apart and put a different SSD in there so I can actually get an updated OS on it and get around their safeguards. But the other one, I paid like $80-$90 for a beefier one that actually has some more power to it, just to be able to test different things for WVD and use it in other scenarios. So yeah, looking at that, I was actually too looking, consulting the oracles of the internet here, and just looking at what's in the background there. And there's people talking about how you can manage Chrome devices with Active Directory and SSO with Azure AD. So that'd be interesting. But the next thing that I'm working on, now that I got basic WVD stuff, is going to see how Azure AD auth and other things can work with these thin clients, because normally it just logs you in when you initially set up, it's just like a default user and wipes it every single time. So going to see what fun we can have with Azure AD and conditional access, and how well it plays with that.
Yeah, because I guess the point would be, if I can go buy $250 devices or $70 devices and use WVD.
Have an internet connection.
Yeah, if you've got a decent internet connection, then that's all you need, right? I mean, I flattened my machine Wednesday, and I'm trying to go as Spartan as possible. I've had to install 48 things today to make the stream work, but beyond that, I'm trying to go Spartan. So I didn't install Office, I didn't install Visual Studio. I've just got VS Code, WSL2, a couple other tools and whatever. And in fact, I tweeted about this, I guess it was yesterday. I said, hey, I'm going to try to go without Office or Visual Studio. And within 10 minutes, I needed Office, because apparently you can't create a PowerPoint from a custom template in Office on the web. But nonetheless, I ended up using WVD because I know that our WVD has full client PowerPoint. So I ended up using it, and it's a pretty good experience. I mean, for me sitting on my machine here at home.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. You talk about getting access to those applications, and one of the things too that we're looking forward to, and that we see in the works, is better B2B, kind of B2C integration with WVD, because we have customers that are looking at WVD to kind of run their own kind of, I guess you would say, kind of ISV SaaS platform, so that for smaller mid-market customers, they can provide applications to their end users. And basically, they just run on a WVD host, and they give them a identity. And that's where you and I have talked in the past about possibly kind of mapping identities and how we can do impersonation with Azure AD. So that's one of the things we're seeing now as customers evolve and adopt WVD more fully, is looking at different scenarios, not just remote workers or things of that sense, is actually using it in other scenarios, such as, like I said, delivering kind of a SaaS model, streaming apps that require GPU. So having different tiers of, hey, this is a gold level tier versus a silver tier. So some interesting.
Oh, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I remember actually years ago working with an ISV that was building software where this company they captured a lot of data for their customers, right? And they wanted to give their customers a way to come in and run SQL queries and build dashboards and do stuff like that. But it was far more low level than just build a dashboard. And this was also 5 or 6 years ago. And that's kind of what it ended up being. It wasn't, of course, WVD didn't exist back then, but it was, well, let's stand up an RD gateway and let's stand up an RD farm and build out this big thing. And then people used they essentially gave their customers AD accounts just so that they could connect to these machines and do things like local Excel talking to their SQL databases, because it was their customers' data. It wasn't this company's data. It was the data of their customers. They just wanted to give them like a really sort of full fidelity system to go and interact with it. And I'm thinking now, like with what you're just saying, being able to do that when using your Azure AD account, you go subscribe and you just go sign in and you get B2B in or something else. That's pretty fascinating. I think that'd be pretty cool. Like,
Richard and I have been working on it a little bit, and it's a lot of like, we know the pieces individually work, but we're still working on putting it together in a whole like tested scenario. And like I said, it all comes down to the whole how you handle Azure AD, because a lot of companies, how do we have that seamless user experience? Because customers don't want to say, hey, let me give you an identity in my realm. So do we use like a third-party tenant, or how can we possibly use B2C? So that's the main question. Like, we can get all the nuts and bolts talking to each other, but it's more the identity side, where how do we say, I buy a license and with this company and they're hosting stuff in an ISV model with WVD, how do we authenticate and present that to the user? Because we can use Azure AD domain services and such to kind of get around a full-on AD name, but so things to work on in 2020.
I don't know. That'd be pretty cool though. Like, you think about the kind of software you can deliver, and it kind of it opens the door to all sorts of different things. If you can deliver more than just what you can do on the web, right? Because everything we're doing now is just for web. We build a web app and people go and use our web app, and we've got a million things that are happening in the background to maybe make our web app not feel like a desktop app or whatever. But you still end up with all this trust that you have to really trust the device that this software is going to go on, or you have to build your software in a way that you don't trust the devices at all, right? It's the whole thing around implicit flows and how do we sign in without secrets and all that sort of stuff. But then if you flip that on its head and think, well, I'm actually going to host the compute for the user, but their experience is still going to be similar to what they would have, installing my software package. I don't know. It's pretty cool. It's almost like, it's like Citrix SaaS, right? Which I think is super, super cool. Like, I'm the more I think about this, the more I'm thinking there are a bunch of really, really cool things that you can do with that.
Citrix.
What do you think, Vin?
I dig it.
Email.
There's more things that I'm trying to look for more information on report viewer controls. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm digging around in right now. I'm in some kind of weird, terrible vortex of documentation and comments. But yeah, I mean, again, Azure AD, and I'm dealing with a commercial and government situation. So I care about what you weirdos are talking about in here.
Have you asked that question yet, Vinny, about your bridging the gap of between gov and commercial?
In the show, no. To anybody else that has any semblance of identity information, yes. I've been trying to get whatever details I can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, how sovereign is a cloud if it suddenly has a bunch of links over to other clouds? It doesn't really make it that sovereign anymore. I mean, how much fun would Les Stroud's show have been if he was, dropped off in a neighborhood somewhere, Survivor Man? It would have been really boring. So, I mean, we got to keep it interesting. But now there's, there's a lot of discussion.
But how do you, hang on, how do you create trust in an environment like that with an incredibly limited scope? Right?
Yeah, I know.
I think that is the fundamental challenge of identity is solving that problem. And we've done it across clouds. We've done it across services. We just, within our own two clouds, because of the sensitive nature between those two, we haven't solved that problem yet. So,
yeah, I mean,
yeah, that's the fundamental thing to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? Because government people have one set of requirements, but not for everything. Like, sometimes government people are doing work that is, the fact that they work for a government doesn't matter because it's not government data or it's something else. Like, I mean, even some of the regulated stuff, like one of my buddies works for the power company here, and he was telling me that essentially they're two businesses. There's the regulated side of the business and the unregulated side, and that the unregulated side is I mean, they're much more like a traditional enterprise where they can do different things and they can have innovation groups that try new stuff and whatever. But that the regulated side, I mean, it's locked down. You can do these things, you can access this data, you need this kind of an account, and the government versus consumer side or government versus commercial side is kind of the same way. Like, not everything that a person's going to do in their job necessarily needs to live in that government space, because it's less about who they are and more about kind of what their function is for that specific app or piece of data or whatever.
Oh, there's a question from Daryl Chandler. I think it's a follow-up from his B2C question. I have
A registered app with flows. Under that app, I use 3 flows. Sign up, sign in, edit profile, change password. Okay, so this is B2C. Each of those allows for a different customization of the sign-in page. Is the point to just allow for different titles as the user is signing in, or is there more to it? That's an interesting question. So the collection of flows is independent of the collection of apps, right? So any flow can sign into any app.
Yep.
The reason why you can change the sign up, sign in is you may have different branding for different apps. So app 1 may be for a certain application or a certain suite of apps or something, and it may use a specific flow. Like, it may have a flow just made for it because you need the UI to be customized. But everybody else is going to use a different flow for signing into the other apps, right? So that because the application determines which flow a user is going to go down, not on the Azure AD or the B2C side, but on the app side. So when you go to sign a user in, you've got a specific app and you've got a specific flow that you're choosing. You've got the flexibility to have different branding between the different kinds of flows. In that view, when you've got the multiple, local sign in, sign out, social sign up, error, with the fact that you can modify those independent pages is really just the fact that a flow could be of any one of those different types, and so if you were to edit the sign up page, but you didn't have a sign up flow, then no one would ever see that, right? Just because it's never gonna happen. But the real reason is that the applications and the flows are not really connected in any way outside of what your application does to bring them together. So I hope that helps.
Which is super flexible and super confusing.
Well, I mean, that's the name of the game when it comes to B2C. It's because it's so flexible, it can get fairly it can get a little confusing. I don't know. We must have lost Vinny. Maybe somebody started watching a YouTube video or something at his house and his internet died. Here. Oh, you're back now. Okay. Okay, good. So yeah, it all comes down to how you want things to look. So now I hear myself 5 times. That's okay. Hey, Hannah.
I'm freaking out over here a little bit. Where's the other
We
sound
still
coming
hear
from?
ourselves 10
Yes.
times.
Something on
Hey,
my
you have a
hardware.
visitor, Vinny. 2 visitors.
These are my
in fact.
coworkers. They aren't particularly respectful of video calls or work happening.
You know, that's okay. So, my kids are going to be home from school. Actually, they're already home from school, so. Yep. And Daryl, if you want, feel free to send us an email and we will be happy to discuss this in more detail and answer any extra questions you might have. So, yep.
What's happening with the sound, man? Something is going on.
I don't know. Well, I think it might be Hannah. No, it stopped. No, it stops.
You
But we
scared
can't hear
Hannah
her.
away.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to. I wasn't trying to scare her away, but we still hear. We don't hear ourselves now. But we don't hear her either. So that's okay. We'll get it. We'll get it figured out.
I gotta drop off and go do grown-up stuff. Everyone,
All right, man.
enjoy solving all the problems.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining us. Happy
Yeah.
holidays.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you guys later.
See
you,
you
man.
later. Thank you.
No. Oh yeah.
Wait,
Yes. Yes.
it's JPD. It's only you.
It's only you, JP.
Do you have the?
It's always
is
you,
it-
JP.
I know that's what it feels like. So, we'll get it sorted out. I don't hear myself now, so that's good. So, Callie, what you got coming up for 2021? Anything super cool besides a bunch of Wise devices on WVD?
Trying to think. Nothing really that comes to mind right now. Just like I said, just work on some identity things, trying to get more in the dev realm and broaden my horizons. Just did a lot of stuff in the DevSecOps. Did a little hackathon with some customers the past few days, so that was interesting. Seeing kind of
Did you
where
use
we-
identity? Did you
Did
use
what?
identity there?
Did we use identity there? Kinda. We use identity to have user profiles to sign into Azure DevOps. But yeah, no, we dug into kind of stuff about credential scanning and dependency scanning. So some good stuff to be aware about, especially as JPD was talking about earlier. You can have these applications, great things, but it's also having the trust behind them and and where they live and how you develop them. So so working in that space. Going forward in 2021, my focus is all on critical infrastructure and remote workers and things of that nature. So in a lot of automation things that we're working on in the background. We've been working with Richard to get some cool little projects that will be pushing out come January, and looking forward to seeing what new things that the identity folks can come up with to make our lives better.
Well, I'm a little bit. I mean, this all
And,
sounds great, but I'm a little bit disappointed that you haven't touched the secretless deployment, Terraform and GitHub issues with. Sorry, not GitHub issues. GitHub Actions with service principles and all that. We need some stream on that, JP. Like we have probably 3-4 different subjects to cover there.
I mean, Callaway's built us. He's built us ARM templates for some of the stuff we've built too, and we haven't had time to. We haven't had time to dig into them.
I have pull requests that have been sitting around for a few weeks now, and then you go ahead and make your own fancy GitHub actions that and do the stuff with Azure AD. And
JP.
So, but no, they've been doing more. It's interesting now because the YAML and story as in Azure DevOps versus GitHub is kind of coming together, and it's interesting seeing the integrations that you can have between Azure. We had a little bit of issue with some service principles, just getting everything linked up because there's the service connection that Azure DevOps uses in order to interact with resources, and so we're having some issues getting the proper permissions and getting it to see that the service principles that we're using had the right permissions on Key Vault and such to pull secrets out of that and put it into play. So there was, I guess you could say, we were using identity in that realm. Christos is a lot of the service principles and such to bring things out of out of Azure DevOps and plain text. And put them in Key Vault and doing secret rotations and such with service principles and things of that nature.
Just be careful about YAML. You can trigger JP at any minute when you use the word. So
I've gotten to like YAML. Okay, like 2 years ago when I was learning the whole containers and AKS, I've learned to turn on white space tracking. But it's also people's YAML. You go find someone's blog about trying to figure out how solve your problem, and you realize that they just copy and paste snippets from 3 different sections of their YAML file in one YAML file just to show you, and you don't realize that, and then you're like, why is this not working? So
all the white space, right?
Yep.
So what do you use to be productive with YAML? Do you have an extension for VS Code that actually compiles, or because if you do GitHub Actions inside GitHub, it highlights issues with space and indentation. So do you have something for local development that our users can use?
There are a few YAML plugins. There's nothing that's really clean that I've found yet, because I see that I think it's Rel has their own plugin, but it's more geared for theirs, but it still does basic YAML formatting. We've actually improved the YAML formatting in such for Azure DevOps, where there's actually some IntelliSense there, where it can actually identify what agent you're using, and pop out a little helper so you can fill it in there and update it, and it'll help you get your formatting right. But it's still not the cleanest thing in the world, as with any YAML, because it's trying to figure out, especially with you're doing variables, if you're using variable groups in Azure DevOps and then individual variables, knowing how they get to say here's a variable group, and then you can't just list them off as variable name and then value. You have to totally structure it differently and call them out individually. You can't just have it assume that these are all there. So we've gotten better in there, but I think with how diverse YAML can be for different things, I don't think there's a clear option yet that I've been able to find. I still prefer JSON and ARM templates, but and I know JPD loves his XML for BDC, but we'll just everyone has their own choice.
He loves, exactly, that's the expression. He loves tons and tons of XML. He's got a strong preference there. I love
No. I don't have a strong. Here's the thing. I like XML because it has a schema, and because it has a schema, it makes it much easier to work with. I use XML for B2C because you have to use XML. If I had a choice to use something else, I would certainly use something else. But
So
I don't know.
Like, what would you choose if you were told you can choose anything to do these? What would you choose?
To do what? B2C or YAML
Yeah,
stuff?
man. No. Let's say
You were making an
get a choice
application.
to do conditional, custom policies, and you're like, you can do anything you want. What would you choose? Code first?
Oh, I would code first. I would code first, hands down. But no second guess. I'd write code because it's more straightforward.
Did you add HANA? Because it's
I
a
did.
weird echo.
No, but I think that's the thing is I don't. If I was going to write code, I could get things done fairly quickly. I think part of the thing with B2C is the difference between an authoring environment of how do I build a policy versus how do I execute a policy, because those are kind of two different things, right? And my ability to write a policy that goes and does stuff is different from the thing that's going to actually go and execute it. And right now, those two things are very close together, and that makes it hard to know exactly what you need to do at any given time.
Yep. So yeah, we actually got in a whole debate about YAML language and what should be used the other day with the customer when we were doing the hackathon, and then that actually brought up another fun memory of working with JPD in one of his lectures over the years. Is why he chooses, and Christos, you've probably known that I've seen this with working with him, is that JPD loves to use var and be simple as he can be. So we got in a discussion about var versus actually declaring what type of a variable is and things of that nature. So its efficiency is the key, especially when it comes to JPD.
Hey, wait a minute. I mean, I personally like var because I don't like being hyper verbose. What's the point of saying, string thing equals new string? I mean, come on. We don't need to do that. We don't need that level of verbosity.
If you write your code the right way and you're able to understand that, but if people just start throwing out, random vars and you're like, what is this variable? Where does it come into play? Then that's,
No, that's true.
things that.
And yeah, so there are a couple questions in the chat too. There is JSON schema, and there's schema'd JSONs, right, that are available. I think it's just that at least for right now, that's not what we're not using that in B2C. And at the time that sort of stuff was built, I don't even know if JSON schema was really a widely accepted or widely available thing. So I think that's probably part of it. But it's XML. You got to write XML to get the policies authored, and it is what it is. Like we just have to make it work, and anything we can do to make it faster for people to get on board with stuff like B2C policy for the stuff they need to do. That's why we built it. That's why we built this stuff the other day with Layla, was so that we've got a sample and it shows how to use it, and that we can talk through some of the different things that make it work. So, yeah. Anyway, it sounds like
insulting to be put back on stream. Is that the message you're sending here?
no, everybody's back on. Hannah's on.
Hey, Hannah's on.
We've got Hannah. We've got Rich back. We've got Callaway. So Hannah puts our whole show together. If it wasn't for Hannah,
Hannah is the brains.
I knew you weren't smart enough to make it this successful, JP. I knew there was someone behind the curtain.
That's me. I really hope there's no echo for you guys. JP, is
No,
it just you?
JP was the only echo I heard, but it seems to be gone now, so that's excellent.
Oh, I got the echo on too, Richard.
Oh, you think it's me? Did I break it?
No, I think something weird is happening behind the scenes.
Now all we need is Layla, and we'll have a full party here.
I can only think like JP has these cables that he had back in the the early days of the telephones. Like he trying to connect things between people in the channel, and then things don't go well. But yeah, Hannah, we couldn't be here without Hannah. She's awesome, and she keeps us organized and make sure that everybody that has to come to the show comes to the show. She's also the one that will send your swag. And talking about swag, you get an opportunity to actually win some awesome Xbox vouchers, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, or Azure credits. So, and those Azure credits, by the way, you can use them on existing subscriptions. You don't have to create a new subscription, which is great. And yeah, we have swag, Frank. You bet it. So all you have to do to get that swag is send us an email on 4to5@microsoft.com and tell us what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, and what would you like to see more in the new year. Simple as that.
So JP, in regards to your last comment about XML, you know what I prefer? Wizards. I don't want to learn JSON or XML. I want a God-blessed wizard. What's the point of having a web portal if I don't have a wizard?
no, I know.
Don't you rub your eyes at me, sir?
You can get a wizard. You can get JP. Rent a wizard for an hour. You can wear his
Where's
hat
those?
and come and help
How
you.
many times have you ever said
where's
yes
my
to me
hat?
when I've asked for help?
Every single time. Dude, we
You say yes, and then you say, I will help you. I will help you. Go figure it out on your own.
So okay.
Yesterday,
I gotta.
true story. Yesterday, Richard comes and says to me, I need to figure something out. How do I do it? We set up a meeting with the Microsoft lead PM just to work out how we can do that. And
Did you really?
We did, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Dude.
You're back
and
on
he
the
told
nice
us.
list.
He told us. Yeah, it's not in there. So you have to
All
figure
this
out an
year.
alternative for the. We're going to have to figure out an alternative for your problem, but.
So I did
Yeah,
find a web app that can take a fiddler trace and make it into a Python screen scraping. And honestly, if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. And it'll go web scrape and it'll click the God bless button.
Well, I know
F12 is your friend.
we still have to capture the fact that you have to do this so that we can try to get it. So we can try to get it
There's
sorted. Like, that's the whole
13,000
premise.
upvotes on the user voice request. How many more upvotes do you need?
User voice. Send me a link.
Yeah, actually I
Send me a
will.
link, yeah.
Good call. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Coward.
send me a link.
Coward.
Send me a link so that we can chase it down. This is all about unblocking users within the unblocking an MFA blocked person, right? So if somebody's got the
Yeah.
MFA blocked.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I want to set the record straight on the XML thing because a bunch of people are
God.
giving me trouble about it.
God, I told you we're gonna trigger him with YAML and XML. Yeah, he goes,
Well, no, but
he's
hang
stuck
on.
there
Well-
for half an hour. Go on.
But hang on. So Richard, your comment about I'd like a wizard. B2C has a wizard, right? You don't have to do XML to make B2C work. You don't have to touch it. You don't have to do anything with it, right? It's there. It works. You go and you add a user flow. You add an application, and then click. You're done, right? So you can use B2C as a username and password database or for social stuff without having to do any drama. It's when you want or need this sort of extra flexibility that you got to jump in and do stuff, and that's when you have to use XML, at least for B2C. So, yes, I'm going to die on this hill, Robertables, because I don't want everybody thinking that I'm like some big fan of XML. It's just that it's what I have to use, because that's the only way you can do the custom stuff in B2C right now. I'd love to be able to just write code for it, or just sit down and write an assembly, or even just put a container out there on the internet and say, hey, go hit this, please. But at least for right now, this is what we've got, and so we have to work with what we got. So, yeah.
Why can't we ask some system to remember something and let it decide the best way to store it? That's very open-ended, like super open-ended. Is that
Well, at what point? At what point do people not write code anymore? Right?
Well, isn't that the whole point of machine learning and AI, where there's all those, like the GPT, where it actually writes its own code to create its own language library and builds its own vocabulary on its own?
We're nowhere near there.
We're
Am I the only one that geeked out on paying the GP3 dungeon generator?
I think
Probably.
so.
It's fun.
You're hearing the future from a man in a pig hat.
That's right. Think about your life choices.
So anyway, I want to hear predictions for 2021, because 2020 was okay, right? I mean, I'll say there were some really bad things that happened in 2020.
It was okay, he says.
Well, there are some things that were actually okay. Like, I mean,
Like
so
your
let's
water
see.
bill?
So don't get me started on that. That's just going to be a long road that I'm not ready for. But so obviously coronavirus, all that sort of stuff, like all of that's very bad, and as bad as it is, and it keeps on going on, whatever. Obviously, 2020 has been bad for a lot of people. People losing jobs and everything else. Totally, that's a bunch of really bad stuff. But other things have happened in 2020 that aren't completely awful. I guess it depends on who you ask. Christos and I joined this team. I don't know if you put that in the bad category or
records. How did you know
what?
That? Taylor Swift dropped 2 new records in 2020. There you go.
How do you know that?
You have daughters, don't you? Christos, please tell me you have daughters, because if you know that and you don't have young ladies,
priority right there.
I am banned from the team forever.
Okay, so Hannah, so what's your big prediction for 2020 for 2021?
I think it's going to be slightly better than 2020.
Is he on your team?
Not that
Because that sounded like your answer. That sounded like a JP
Still
answer right there.
Yeah.
Incrementally better.
We infected Hannah.
Better.
Hey, am I allowed to post links in this in the chat for?
Is there something?
That's a dangerous opening question right there.
Well, I mean, I can throw the user voice chats in here so that our viewers can go and decide if they want to upvote it or not. And I did find, apparently, there was a blog post from July that said from the Azure AD product team in user voice, says that this is a planned feature, and that was back in July, and we're 6 months later, and I don't see it, so I'm fired
Well,
up.
let me
so many complaints.
Send us the link. Yeah.
Well, you have to remember, Richard, a lot of things did get skewed this year because of COVID. There's different priorities came up because
the priority should have been they have more hours in the day to code because they're not driving to work every day. This is why I'm going to be management material someday.
Oh man, can you imagine Richard as your manager?
Oh my God!
What do you mean you're affected by COVID? You got so many more hours in the day to work.
Oh my God! I feel like we need to. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it follows the Microsoft management model. I don't feel like that follows it correctly.
I was when I was doing my MCM, and I was up on campus. It was in the summertime, and I was talking to a friend who did manage a group of developers, and he said he hates the summertime because everyone's out playing soccer, everyone's out having a good time enjoying the weather, using the treehouse and whatever. And he goes, in the wintertime, they get so much more code written, and they get so many more check-ins and checkouts, but work-life balance, he just has to grumble about it.
Yeah,
What is this
it's hard.
Work-life balance you talk about?
Yeah, is that still a thing? Do we still do that? Do we still attempt to do that? I guess we tell people we do, right?
Me and JP were up until what? JP was 10:30 last night. I was 7:30 last night. Getting organized for you folks to have this stream. See?
But that's because I think we would do that regardless, though, right? I actually
we love
enjoy
our
this.
job.
This is the highlight of my week is Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the days he has to speak to me for 8 hours without actually streaming.
No, Robert Tables makes a powerful point. It's not working from home, it's living at work. I will say, Satya did a whole interview about the whole work from home thing, and one of the things he highlighted was delineating, having a habit that stops your workday and starts not workday. because I stopped eating dinner at the table with my better half, and I was starting to get really stressed out. When I watched it, I didn't realize that having that stop, stepping away from the computer, having dinner with the family, for me, turned my brain off and put me back into personal time. And it actually helped me a lot, just hearing that and making that conscious choice to have an action, in this case dinner, that stops the workday and starts the personal time.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast where I was talking about how he would either during the summer, he would go for a walk or drive his car or ride his bike around for a few minutes, before he would go into office to work, and then when he was done for the day, he would do the same thing. Because now with everyone working from home, we don't have that time for our minds to kind of transition and be like, okay, I'm going to work and switch modes versus come back. So it's interesting reading that.
Yeah, also, if you have your own space, like if you have an office within the house where it's a separate location, obviously not everybody can afford or have the capacity to do that if you live in an apartment or whatever. But for me, having an office space, my man cave, where I go and do my work, and then I leave that. And when I leave that, I know that I'm not doing work anymore. Even if I have a laptop in front of me, I'll be doing other things like watching a movie or, definitely not working. So it does provide this kind of separation of concern. It contextualizes.
Is it still called the man cave, Christos, if you're piping in Taylor Swift's new albums?
Hey, no judgment here. I listen to everything from classic all the way to whatever. But
so the thing is,
the last album she dropped was good. Sorry.
So yeah, I think we.
Lila's here. Lila. Yeah, go.
We moved to our current house. I don't know, 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and yeah, it was 20. Oh, when was it? See, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. It was a few years ago. But the thing is, we picked this house because it had a basement, and there's an office already in the basement, and it's got plenty of space because we got a bunch of little kids and whatever. And so the thing is, I think about the house that we moved from, and if I had to work from home in that house, I mean, it would be, I would be sitting on a cardboard box in the backyard because there's just no room. There's literally no room or anywhere for me to go and work. And I think about people who were told, back in March, April, whenever, hey, by the way, you can't come back to work, and we don't know when you're going to be able to come back to the office. Because not only that, a bunch of people had, they were told, oh, by the way, your kids also can't go to school, and it makes it a lot harder, right? I mean, it makes it really tough to. I mean, luckily, my wife stays home and she wrangles the children most days during the day, but. I hear things. I sit down here and I hear thumps and I hear elephant trumpet blasts and Lord knows what else going on upstairs. And I'm tempted to go upstairs because everybody okay? What was that? Somebody's head hitting the floor, or did somebody throw something? What is that? And yeah, I don't know. Hey, Layla. I think she's brought.
So JP, we were lucky and had kind of the same experience because we went from. Not knowing, we sold our house, moved into a small rental because at the time I was traveling a lot. She had an office to go to. And then as we're building our dream home, COVID hits. We were just lucky to have a spare room that we had set aside for the grandparents that became her office and mine. But you'll also notice that's why there's this big trend of the whole she shed or man cave in the backyard experience. A lot of accessory dwelling unit permits were being fast-tracked through, and tons of businesses out there where for $45,000 you can drop an air-conditioned shed in your backyard to be your thing. That was a real trend that took off too, is because it is a big need. You need that sound space, you need focus space, and that delineation of work versus personal environments.
Yeah, I mean, a buddy of mine I used to work with, he was on my old team, he built himself a shoffice in his backyard, which was a shed office. And he showed me this thing, and he's this guy who's so funny, he's 4'9", but unbelievably productive at building things. So he builds stuff all the time. Uh-oh. And he sent me these pictures over the weekend and stuff, and one day he's building, putting a new motor into a car, and the next day he's building a shed in his backyard. So he sends me a picture. He's got his new shoffice, as he called it, set up, and it's got a half of a roof. I don't know what you call it. a closet office. Yeah, it sounds much better than that. Yeah. So he sends me this picture. He's got this great new thing. He's got a bunch of windows on the front, so it's like overlooking the lake, and he can. I was like, that sounds like a great place to work. He got a nice air conditioned, cooled thing. His family owns an HVAC place, so it was pretty easy for him to get it air conditioned. And within like a week, his neighbor complained that it was obstructing her kitchen window view of the lake, and he had to take it down. The whole thing. Had to take the whole thing down. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's why I'm not living in an HOA. And not sponsored by DIY Mr. Cool, but they have excellent kits for DIY. They're the only people that make a DIY mini split because they pre-charge the line. So all I got to do is plug them in. That's what I put on my shed to keep it air conditioned for my solar batteries. It was excellent.
Look at you and your environmentally friendly setup. Love it. Right?
Oh, Christos, you don't want to get me engaged on the whole solar, self-power, environmental friendly chat because JP will tell you I won't shut up for hours.
Right, I'm backing up slowly out of that. You know that GIF where Homer Simpson goes back into
the bushes.
Where are the sound effects? You spend so much time just setting them up, and you haven't used them all day long. What's wrong with you?
Well, I know it's just there's so much activity already. They're much better. In my opinion, the ones that I chose are much better suited to me ambushing you when you're not expecting it than the whole group here. Although we do still have things like air horn, So hey, we've got a new friend who's joined us, or I guess it's definitely not a new friend, but a new old friend is here. So hey, Layla, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Putting
good.
Okay,
background.
I don't listen until you guys can upstage her incredible background. She should not be allowed on the show because my office now does not compare with her beautiful office and Christmas tree scenario. I'm kind of fired up and upset about it. She probably did that with XML too, JP. She probably did that with
Oh my god, I'm never going to get out of this. I need to get a shirt that just has like an open XML bracket right in the middle of it. And nothing else.
And I can wear the closing XML bracket and everything between in the air is,
Oh man. That reminds me that
Wait, did Crystal just volunteer to do an XML Magic Mike rendition? Because that's what I heard.
Or he just officially confirmed that he's the work wife, or is that?
You know what? Whatever the audience wants gets. So if you actually want me to do a Magic Mike XML,
there you go, JP. That's 100,000 points right there. And Crystal should give us the Magic Mike XML show.
Early on when we're starting the stream, I was telling JP that there's these two guys. They have a YouTube channel called Goon Squad, and they build these amazing cars and they have customized. Nowadays, they're building a car. No, they're building a house from the bottom up. And these two young fellows are amazing. But I said to him, look, they put a video out, and within 2 hours, they had like 250,000 views. What do we need to do? And sometimes, they take a new car and the first thing they do is wash it. It's like, you know what? Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should just take our cars out and wash them for our audience. We can get 200,000 hits. What do you think? He was like, I'm not ready yet for that.
I'll tell you this. You could probably pull a lot of new folks. You could probably pull a lot of new folks to the show if you were to say, take off your shirt and wash your car. Everyone would leave if I did the same. So I just want to put it out there. I don't think that people are coming for the aesthetic nature of our stream. I mean, we have a man in a pig hat. We have, we have who was the guy with Babe the Blue Ox? Paul Bunyan. We have Hannah and we have Layla with the amazing Christmas scene with all sorts of.
For what it's worth, Corey has seen my abs on camera. That has happened.
Oh. Do I want to...
I'm just disturbed. I don't know what I've joined here.
Apparently it's the last stream of the year and probably the last stream ever because...
We were talking about work-life balance. We see how well that's gone. So now we're here. But how was your show today, Layla? I watched a little bit this morning, but then I had to come do this one. So
Did you get a gifted subscription, JP?
I did get a gifted subscription. Thank you, AZ Wildfire.
Nice, you're welcome.
Yeah. There was so many. I mean, we broke my room twice. No, 3 times we broke my room.
That's awesome.
So
that's good.
It was Good. Got at the end of it though, I got stuck in trying to figure out how to write a custom JSON converter, and my brain's nearly exploded now. And it's gone wine o'clock on a Friday, and I'm thinking,
See, I was curious if the brandy eggnog was going to get me in trouble on Twitch, because I have no idea what the Twitch stream terms of services are. But now that I'm done with my customers for the day, the brandy eggnog was calling it to me.
Wait a minute.
And I have the moose
What
mug.
is it?
Maybe it is time to go get the moose mug. Stay tuned.
Richard does not operate on time zones, my friend. He's above them.
That's true. That's true. So I'm sorry. You were struggling with a JSON parser.
a converter, custom converter.
So if it was XML, if it was XML, it would all just happen. It would just work. See, they've been giving me trouble about XML all morning. So I mean,
you do write a lot of XML, quite fancy.
not by choice. It's the only thing to do. It's the only thing I can do it in. So it's what I gotta use. So.
Oh man, Robert Table was like, I knew he was going to be stuck on this XML thing. Yeah, we should have started that conversation. Why?
Anyway.
Why did I mention YAML? No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was Corey. But he mentioned YAML and got us in trouble.
So we were talking about bold predictions for 2021. What are yours, Layla? Anything good?
Yes.
Teach this not to chew everything. That would be really good.
Okay.
You probably didn't notice that I have this little person sat here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and what else? Just continue to stream. I'm enjoying it. I haven't really thought about any goals for next year, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've thought about work goals. I don't know. I guess I have to see if life sort of returns a little bit to normal, because everything's a little bit crazy. With life. So I'm just taking it weeks at a time. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Now we were talking about like how people have adapted to working at home and stuff earlier, and that was kind of the topic you walked into when you got here. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've worked at home. I've always worked at home at Twilio. So like for the past 3 years, I've worked from home. I used to go into the office once or twice a week just to see people. But nothing really changed for me. I just got to be at home with the dogs more rather than jet lagged and not knowing what day or whatever it is. So
that's a very good point. I don't miss the jet lag. I don't miss the stuck at airports. I don't miss
planes for 30
I started
hours.
to. My life was up in the air, like the movie during when I was a PFE and then coming to a CSA. Part of why I switched was to lower the travel, but now having no travel, I've always been just going to Mexico doesn't count, but I've always been a travel bug. So I actually miss it. I'm looking forward to going back to the Netherlands for all my customers, or going back to, New Zealand without,
I don't know,
giving side eye
man.
for being an American or whatever.
I'm getting too old for traveling across time zones. Honestly, like I'm getting hit hard. Plus, I don't like being away from the kids. I spent PFE forever, by the way. I spent 2.5 years leaving the house on Sunday night and coming home on Friday afternoon.
Yep.
Not really seeing the kids.
It's rough, isn't it, Christos? It's rough.
Yeah, that sounds like Corey and I's travel schedule at the place we used to work. And, my first 18 months of my first child's life, it was 2 or 3 weeks a month. And I was instead spending it with my 18-month-old coworker, because that's what he looked like back then, because he had no hair. And it was like taking a...
We had some fun time.
We did. We had plenty of fun times, but it was like going through the airport with a 6.5-foot tall mobile infant. And it was just very strange. So, but anyway,
Did you get a special lane? Did you tell him to sit in a wheelchair so you could get, or was he your emotional support infant?
No, it was fun. I tell you, the thing is, the best way. Like my dad. So growing up, my dad always played in bands, like musical bands, and of course we all played music growing up and still do. I guess most of us. But I remember him telling me the hardest part about being in a band is getting 3, 4, or 5 people to not kill each other. And I'll be honest, that's what building teams is like too. Because I remember we had Callaway and I had a show. We had a trip, and We were. It was like in like Pennsylvania somewhere. We were.
Yep.
I mean, it was 18 hours, essentially 18 hours a day. We get up at 6, we drive an hour to the customer site because there were no hotels near them. We beat the customer all day. The customer wanted to go to dinner afterwards, so we all go to dinner afterward. We get back in the car and drive another hour, get back to the hotel at 12 o'clock, right, at midnight, and then get up and do the whole thing all over again. And if you haven't killed
February?
somebody after 2 or 3 days of that,
Oh,
yeah,
puppies.
it was like February, yeah.
Yeah, and like
Delicious
you
to your puppies.
left your soda in the car overnight and it froze because that's how cold it was there. And we were staying at a courtyard that in the
that's fine.
parking lot was a Subway and some rundown convenience store because that was like the nearest
Yep.
hotel that wasn't or like a Red Roof Inn kind of thing.
Yeah, it was
Good
the only
time.
place that was the those were good times. Those were good times. But it's weird because I don't get to see people. I mean, I haven't seen you in months. I've never actually met Christos in person.
We're
Like
gonna
we said
burn
before.
the town when you come to Redmond, dude. We've got that date, right?
Yeah, well, I'll be back at my
Hannah.
hotel by 9:30. Like, I'm so tired. But like I don't know if Christos is 5 feet tall or 7 feet tall. How could we know? No one.
Should we
how
get a
would they
banana
know?
for scale? I can get a
It could
banana
be a
right next to you
pocket
for scale.
cat.
What we need is a unit of measure of scale based on Christos' beard.
That's what we need. So anyway, so you anticipate? Like, see, we're all in the U.S., and so here everything's a complete dumpster fire. We can't. I mean, you can travel. Like where I live, people travel all the time because I live in South Carolina, so they're all a bunch of idiots. But other parts of the country, locked down various ways. But I mean, Layla, you're over in the UK. Like, are things better there? Are you more? Do you have the ability to get out and travel more?
Well, my city just went into tier 3, the highest level of lockdown, highest
wow.
level of alert today.
God.
London went in yesterday, as along with some other places, but it doesn't really mean much. They're not really sure about what's happening. The government guidelines say that you can do more or less everything except eat in a restaurant. Everything, it's takeaway food. You can still go to shops. They haven't closed. I think if they're in a shopping mall, they might be closed. But if they're open to the public, I think, like open to the high street, you can still go in. And I've frozen.
Oh no, you are frozen. It's all that snow.
I know. And it's
the
all
snow
the
falling
snow.
on you.
It's the waffles.
I mean,
I
you've
will
got
be
like
back momentarily.
you've got like ray tracing. She's got like a ray traced desk Christmas scene. It's just the wildest thing,
And she had a snow machine going earlier, nice projection screen. It's pretty nice setup.
It's
a
Yeah,
little
he's
dog.
optimizing.
Putting us to shame. Just the me and JP with some green background. Although he did make an effort to put some Christmas lights up there this morning, and that's easy.
Yeah, that.
Why is he
that
making an effort to make the point system work? That's what I want to know.
Because I
know,
got
right? He had
I have
whole
a
week.
job. I have a job. Look,
Hey, your job is to make the point systems work. That's exactly your job.
Exactly, JP.
I don't know. You know
Shame
what?
on you.
My skip level was on this. Was watching earlier, so I don't know. So everybody
Might still
tell
be lurking in the
Well,
background.
everybody.
JP,
talk
you already
about
turned
how
in your
great we
connect,
are.
right? Your connect has already been done, right? Before today's stream, because otherwise that might not work out well for you.
Yeah.
We'll have to
so.
see.
Anyway, but yeah, no, I got the bot. We started working on it last week, but I just haven't had time to finish it between now and then because I got a job to do.
If only
So-
you knew someone in the community who had such amazing skills, she could do beautiful things with her desk, who could also help you with points redemption.
No,
Yeah,
I mean she did.
who handed you a ready-made belt that's been tested and
I know.
working.
Control V. There you go, JPD. That's it.
I know. I had to be difficult and say, wait a minute, I want to do this in an Azure function because I don't want to use WebSockets. And then like the
Why?
OCD kicked in, and I was like, I got to do this with webhooks. So then I spent a
Because
bunch of time learning
JP
Twitch webhooks.
Because JP wants to write everything from scratch.
No, I don't.
Except a Python web app to unblock Azure MFA users.
No. I mean, I've actually the channel points thing is quite far along. When you redeem points, my function finds out about them. So the second step now is making the things happen, which I'm working on. I'm just not done with yet. So it is what it
You
is.
can try to mute us. It's just that we won't mute.
Yeah, I mean the muting will come. That to me is probably the most effective channel point expenditure you can make, which is why it's so cheap. It's only 100 channel points to mute either one of us once the muting is turned on.
So is the 100,000 point Magic Mike show off the table now?
Ooh.
Well, it depends on who's going to do it. Are you going to come back and do
I
it?
thought Christos was going to do it. He's going to have an XML carved dabs.
Oh my God! Stop.
Was that not real? He was going to tattoo them on, or even dry erase marker. I'm not picky.
I'll do. Can I do crayons?
Anyway.
I figured you would just
What
get one of
about-
those inflatable suits, Christos, and then put an XML.
Yes.
Those inflatable Halloween suits that make you look
Yeah.
all buff, and then put the XML on it. I had a whole vision in my mind of how this was going to work out.
I'm
I
not
think
buffing
Layla's
it.
reconsidering her choice to be a guest regularly on the show.
Yeah, this is time number 5. What am I doing with my life? Why?
Yeah. So,
See, that's what we figured
you
it-
into the mud.
Yeah, that's what we figured it
Lila.
would be. Yeah, it's gotten a little dicey here. So, and yeah, hey, Vicious, yeah, we will work on the bot. I don't know, but I guess maybe when we get back we will, because I've got the code. There were a couple changes I made since the last show we did some bot stuff. The big thing I had to get sorted out was the signature generation and authenticating and then verifying signatures. So we got all that sorted. And now I'm ready. I just got to go. We got to go wire it all up, and we'll do it on the show sometime. We may end up actually doing a one-off, occasional whatever sometime during the break, because I'm going to be at home with my kids for 2 weeks, and they're going to be bored. So we may end up doing an impromptu.
Rescue
stream.
me.
It would be
Actually,
like-
JP, what I think would be pretty cool is do a family STEM stream and see what you can code through Azure AD or Identity. Getting your little chalupas in line from a STEM standpoint. Maybe they can program a point function, like Daddy has to give them better Christmas presents or something.
Yeah,
I don't think the
I
attention
don't
span
know.
will last that long.
Fair enough. Fair
I mean,
enough.
I haven't.
And
JP's or his kid?
Lexington Dissect says, I want to make a code stream again. I tried one last year where I RTFM live and read all the C# user docs cover to cover. Streaming and coding live is hard. I find it quite a challenge, so sometimes I prep before the show. So, we'll look into the feasibility of something.
Hey, Christos, if you don't mind me asking, as someone who's not a coder, why is coding on stream hard? Like, I've seen some of Fitz's, I think his name is C# Fitz code, and I've seen some other, like Lena Lux when she builds her games. If you don't mind me asking, from someone who's not a coder, what makes it hard to code on stream?
Not everyone is as clever as JP, that he's a walking, talking knowledge base, that he never looks at the APIs or docs to...
But that's just being authentic. That shouldn't be considered a challenge. If they don't love you for who you are, they shouldn't watch your stream.
But the way I work... the way I work is I'm trying to solve a problem. I'm jumping on the docs and then I'm jumping back and forth and I Google. So it's more about putting yourself out there and not being afraid to fail on stream rather than actually being successful. And I think that's what
I'm really
people
good at
value.
failing.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Me too, Layla. That's the only reason why Corey is my friend. He watches me fail daily, so it makes him feel better about himself.
Well, I heard Layla talking earlier about how she fell and dealing with the dogs earlier. So there's prime example right there.
Oh yeah, I've fallen over twice this week. My foot went down a hole in deep leaf litter on Tuesday, and I went on my hands and knees. And then yesterday, Silicon Orchid was like, no, we can't go down that. It's too steep and too slippy with mud. And I was like, oh, I'm sure I can manage in not hiking boots because they were soaked after washing them. I had on my Allbirds, which are basically flat skids. And so I went to go down this hill and I went feet out under me, landed on my buttocks. And I went, what, like that? I'll slip and fall like that. And he was like, yeah, pretty much. I was like, yeah, thanks. So now I've got a crick in my neck and yeah, so streaming is about being comfortable with failing in public. That's it. Like that, Yes.
that if you wrap your head around that and say, you know what, I'm gonna fail and people will see me fail live. And there shouldn't be a stigma about learning and failing, because I believe that everyone wants to be awesome on stream and be super great, even in real life. But one of the things that I try to teach my kids is that you can't move forward in life if you don't fail, and if you don't accept failure as part of the learning process. And I enjoy failing, right? I enjoy trying to do something and seeing how far I can fall before I can get up and continue to do that. So, like even yesterday, right? Honest to God, somebody said you can use Azure AD with cognitive services. Awesome. I look in the docs and it says you spin up a cognitive services, you can authenticate with Azure AD. I'm looking into that, and then one of the docs says you need to actually have a custom domain for your custom subdomain for your Azure cognitive services to be able to authenticate with Azure AD. The docs are wrong, by the way, because you cannot spin up cognitive services or update it after you do that. So I was like, for half an hour, I was like going around circles, and then it turns out you can only do it through the CLI. So first, I'm going to go and fix the docs because that doesn't work, and secondly, it was fun going down that trip, even as somebody mentioned that. So failing is fun. If you are comfortable in doing it in front of other people, then it's more fun and they can learn with you. There it is.
No, I mean, I think, I think I think some of it's setting expectations, right? I mean, all of us have worked with customers at some point, and we've all had customers who are looking at us to say, these guys are the experts. Why are they not sure about this? Or why are they asking so many questions? Or we're not sure they actually know what they're talking about, that sort of thing. And I kind of think the days of like super deep experts are kind of, I don't want to say over, but there's so much stuff that you need to know. And so much of it is not, it's not implementation details, right? It's not all about the specifics.
So from an infrastructure point of view, JP, I can't tell you how many times my having memorized an RFC has helped me fix a customer's challenge. And I know that's not something normal people do, but that's real. What was that?
You memorize RFCs.
Yeah, so I got my MCM, and you're required to memorize a bunch of RFCs back then, and it has served me to this day. Microsoft gave me an 8-hour test on the DNS, SMTP, TCP/IP RFCs at the time, and I had to memorize them and deal with that. But that data, for example, when a customer says, why doesn't Azure DNS do X? And I say, because that's not how DNS works. It's not in the RFC. And I'll throw the quote to them, and then they back up and like, oh, well, okay, then I guess we're doing it wrong. Network engineers that have no idea what TCP/IP actually is supposed to do, or what the difference between VXLAN encapsulation and TCP/IP is. And once they learn that, then they realize, yeah, network security in the cloud isn't the thing. We need identity, we need endpoint, right? They don't do that.
Though, my point though is that you're nobody's going to be able to. You're not going to be able to go in and talk to a customer, especially about a broad deployment or when you're building a new app or taking an existing app. You're not going to be able to get all the way down to the deepest possible level all the time. It's just not. It's not feasible for a single person to be able to do that, especially with because expertise is expertise.
But JP, that's why you scope your expertise. That's why I only do infrastructure, and I tease about it all the time, but I don't learn to be a developer because I don't have the brain capacity to learn to be a developer while maintaining my deep level of infrastructure. But Corey, tell me honestly, do my skills with deep level infrastructure go ignored on our team? Or am I the guy that's like, hey, we can't answer these questions, we need someone who's deeper?
The amount of conversations about IOPS and throughput and things that I've had with you, yeah, like that's there. But like I would say, like, coding can be a diverse topic. Like you've written PowerShell scripts, you've written code, but because you always say like I've never written anything on Azure. I think it's just you don't have to be someone JPD and Christo's level where you can just sit down there and write a whole application in one sitting. I think it's the ability to understand code and read and understand it. That's you can be a coder. Like it doesn't have to be very tightly boxed.
It's funny when you mention that because obviously JP is frustratingly good at what he does. I'm not at his level, but I saw the other day on Twitter that being able to effectively search for what you're looking for.
Just smile and accept, Christos. No.
Being able to effectively search for what you're looking for on Google or Bing, whatever you use, it's a real skill. The amount of times that customers ask for something and all I have to do is just Google and return the first result that comes up because I don't know if they can't search for things or if they want the Microsoft rubber stamp. It's insane. I would, I would turn up at the customer and say, we're trying to fix X. And I was like, did you read this doc? or did you read this blog post, or did you read
So
this?
Christos, Corey and I have a teammate, Ryan Barry, where we joke that we legitimately spend half our day just being LeVar Burton to our customers, reading the docs on meetings with them. Ethan and I have literally been on meetings where we told the customer, "Did you read the doc?" And they said, "We didn't find the answer." We will pull it up in Teams and we'll just read it together in our best LeVar Burton voice, and we reading Rainbow through it, and the customer then understands. I think they just like the confidence of having someone else who can help them interpret what they read if their reading comprehension isn't where they want it to be, and have that confidence that I believe the doc says this, do you agree? And us being there to say, yes, that is what the doc means, or no, you took the doc wrong, we'll get that fixed, because we all do absorb information differently and stuff. I think that's really kind of, but yeah, I mean, it's been in the chat as well.
I think the thing that we bring, and the thing that anybody who's done work, I mean, anybody brings, is context that's different, right? My context is different because of my background, and everyone who's on here and everybody who's in the chat all has a contextual difference. That your previous experience, the way that you think about things, right? Like, I didn't come from a computer science background. I went to school for music education because I wanted to be a band director. I worked in a help desk and did networking stuff and system imaging and all that sort of stuff, and then moved over to SQL and then writing software and whatever. And so my context behind a problem and the way that I think through a problem is different from a lot of other people who I've worked with, and similarly back to me, right? And so that context, I think, is what people are looking for. Like, when you come and switch, when you come and talk to them later, they're not saying, I don't know how this works, or I can't read the doc, right? Sometimes maybe the doc isn't good or whatever. That's a different problem. But it's all the context that we bring around what part of this doc is super relevant, what part of this doc is important, what part of this is something that I need to be really, really like careful about, and which parts of this are boilerplate that I would have already known because of the other 48 steps it took us to get here. You know what I mean?
And I would say, JP, the only other thing where, at least my role, what I love about being a CSA and working for Microsoft, the experience. Having worked with 120 customers and seeing the patterns and trends, when I work with customer 121 who says, we can't use PaaS services because we can't control the networking, and I can say, cool, deploy some VMs and put Kubernetes straight up on VMs. Meets everyone's requirements. When you're ready to use Kubernetes as a service, cool, change. Only having learned that because it came from experience. There's nowhere in our docs that even recommends, hey, if you don't like this network security model for Kubernetes, just throw it on VMs in Azure. That's not anywhere. But knowing that that is viable and works, and just having that experience, can help supplement the data they're consuming.
Yeah, and if you ever get a chance to work as a consultant or work for a consultancy firm, I think it's a fantastic way to build experience. I remember when I started, I spent 6 years working for the same company, and unfortunately, working for the same company all the time, although it was fantastic and I had some great colleagues, there's a specific scope of how many things you can learn quickly. When I moved to being a PFE or working as a consultant, where I would do 3-month projects and then move on to something else. PFE was a consultant for a day, right? You would go to one customer, talk about storage, and then the next day you could be talking about on-prem stuff, and then the next day you could be talking about Kubernetes. It was insane how much knowledge I picked up and experience, where I would take all the things I have done with other customers, the good things and the bad things, and then going to the next customer, I was always armed with what you need to know. But the knowledge never stopped. Like, you were always learning new stuff, and you always feel like you don't know enough. And like, am I going to go to the customer and fall flat on my face when they pay an insane amount of money for me to be here to teach them things? So there's always this fear of being inadequate or an imposter syndrome. But what I would say to people is try to do different things and get out of your comfort zone, because that's very important. Don't stay on the same stack. Don't stay on the same technology. If you're doing Azure, go and try AWS. If you're doing .NET, go and try Node and see what you like, what you don't like. I
think Christos, it's that balance of being comfortable, because in my 20s, I thought I knew nothing about IT. I went to a boot camp. My schooling was not computer science related either. And then when I got my first 2003, what was it called back then, MCE, I was like, oh, I know everything. Then I brought down a whole network with a bad GPO. I was like, ooh, okay, maybe I don't know everything, pump the brakes. But now, as I've gotten experience, being able to be honest with my customer and say, I don't know that topic. I'm happy to explore it with you, or I can get you a resource. But also having enough knowledge that I'm not always saying I don't know, so that I'm not with a customer who says, oh, okay, Richard, how does this work? I don't know. How does this work? I don't know. How does this work? And just being honest, I find that, especially in the cloud world, resonates really well. Just being honest, being open to challenging yourself and exploring it with them. 99% of the time, they're totally cool with that. It's uncommon for them to say, no, you know what, go find us that expert. We don't want to learn this with you. That's an uncommon experience in today's cloud world, at least from my customer base.
I think that's
What
a
do
good way
you
of
What do you
putting
think, Layla? You work with a bunch of developers.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that's really helped me is that because I was like a Pilates teacher beforehand, and one of the things I had to learn was how to explain things differently. You'll be surprised at how many people have no awareness of their body, like how to move different parts and things like that. So one of the things
This
I
is
was
family
taught-
friendly, Layla. Family friendly.
I'm one of those.
Yes.
I'm one of those people.
I was waiting for a joke.
So they don't know how to move it, and like you'll be like, you need to move your leg here, and they'll like no here, and you can't just keep going. You have to keep doing. You have to find a different way to explain it, and that's what I was saying in chat, and other people are saying as well. I think one of the greatest abilities you can have is if you're mentoring people and teaching people and working with people is the ability to explain the same thing in multiple different ways. But that takes greater understanding, and that's where the learning curve can go up. I think if you know that something can be done, that answers that question, where you like, you don't always have to say, I don't know. I have to go and, a part of my job, I have to go and do enterprise hackathons with big, huge enterprise companies. And they'll be, I don't know, they'll be working in Java or something, and I don't know it. But I know from all my experience in C# that I know what can and can't be done, and I guess you've got to be able to think laterally. You don't have to know it all. You can come across and say, this can be done in this language. Do you know of something similar like that? And they'll be like, oh, I think I've heard of that. Or you can Google it. And I think, as you were saying earlier, Googling and knowing how to Google something is a huge amount of the battle.
Yeah,
Yep.
knowing which questions to ask.
Right.
I mean, that's what gets you closer. Yeah.
Hannah is quiet. What amazing things do they do?
I think too, like
Somebody's asking on the channel, Hannah, what do you do? What is the amazing thing
Oh,
you do? Should I
the
say?
amazing thing I do? Well, I don't code at all, but I manage things and I'll go get shit done, basically. Oh, am I not allowed to say that?
That's okay.
That's
what we like.
I mostly help manage Christos and JP in the
That's a
sense
full-time
of
gig
that-
right there. Damn.
That's a hard job.
Oh, you!
It's fun, I get to talk to them, and they're funny. They make my day, make me laugh. So I don't know. It's a good time. I'm enjoying my job thus far. I've joined the team in October, so kind of new, I guess. I'm about 3 months in, and
Yeah. So when everybody saw that marked improvement in the stream, it was because you came on in October.
yeah. No, it's been cool to be a part of something that's just picking up speed and is a new concept to the greater team that we're part of.
Well, we wouldn't be here without Hannah's support. She manages all the logistics. She keeps us straight. She books all the amazing guests that we have. We had in the past and that we have coming in the new year. We have an exciting agenda for the first 3 months of the year, and we're expanding that. So we wouldn't be as successful without Hannah. She's an integral part of the team.
Thank you.
That's what she does.
I've been on mute because I think I'm echoing too much. I'm not sure. But
We'll figure it out. But we now I hear myself again. So somebody else.
Echo for some reason.
It must be a me problem. I don't know.
It's a you problem. It's always you.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway,
We have 3 minutes left on the stream.
Yeah.
Should we,
Oh. And then you guys are gonna do some work on a MFA project, right?
Yes, exactly.
No, so Corey's got WBD work to do. JP and Christos have MFA work to do.
Yes. Yes, boss. Right, so before we go, if you want some awesome swag, we got Xbox Game Passes and we got Azure credits. Send us an email at 45show@microsoft.com and let us know what you liked about the show, what you didn't like about the show, and how we can improve. What else would you like to see? And we'll get back to you with some swag. Best answers win. So thanks for
Oh,
being part
we
of.
don't want to hear anything negative.
Nothing negative. No, we actually want to hear the negative. I've got a thick skin, and I like to learn from feedback. So let us know what you didn't like. That's probably more important than the things that you liked, because
Yeah.
maybe you didn't like JP doing all the amazing things, and you just want to see me struggle.
Maybe you didn't like the point stink that is the mute button full of false hope.
It'll come. I get it. Like the points are coming. We're gonna do it on stream anyway. So yeah. So anyway, hey, we're gonna go on holiday for a couple weeks. We might stream at some point and work on our thing. Thanks to everybody who came today, Layla and Rich and Hannah and Callaway and Vinny and Nils and all of our friends who come and hang out with us all the time. We will definitely be back on January 4th, which is our when we all come back from holiday. We may end up doing a stream here or there in the next couple of weeks. I don't know. I'm going to be home with my kids and need something to do. But January 4th is the latest that you will be able to see us again, and that will be Monday the 4th, 2 weeks from 2 weeks from this coming Monday. I hope that everybody has a great. I hope that everybody has a great holiday, whatever it might be that you're celebrating, even if you're just celebrating the fact that all of your coworkers are not going to be at work for a week or two. So we're going to get out of here. Apparently Silicon Orchid says that I need more chair dances, but yeah, there's a momentum problem. Once I start, I don't want it to. I have trouble getting it to stop. So anyway, we're gonna go find somebody's channel to raid. Is anybody else online?
Clarkio's on.
All right, let's go raid Clarkio. Everybody, thanks so much for a really fun stream today and a really fun second half to 2020, and let's hope 2021's better. Again, send us your notes at 45show@microsoft.com, and we'll send you some swag, and we're going to go over to Clarkio and see what he's working on, and we'll see y'all on the other side, all right? Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging. See ya.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.